All right, without further ado, we are going to go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Thomas Ezra. I'm the director of the Alaska After School Network. We are your statewide advocate and convener and catalyst for out of school time, which includes all your fantastic programs from public libraries to after school programs to science centers and everything in between, things that engage kids in positive learning opportunities during out of school time. Our training today is Leap into Science training. Our facilitators are Lily and Elizabeth. They are going to be rolling through things. I'm going to be your tech support throughout the training, so watch out. Tech, I don't know how I got appointed to tech support, but here I am. If you notice, if your name still says Lillian, go ahead and change your name. You can change your name by hovering over your square and clicking those three dots on the little blue square and rename yourself to the appropriate name. This webinar is being recorded because we do have some folks that wanted to attend but had conflicts. So we'll be making the recording available to those who are not able to attend. If you would please, again, enter your name in the chat box with your organization and community you're from. And you can also answer that prompt question on the screen. Without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Lily and Elizabeth to kick off our Leap into Science training. Thank you.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Leap into Science Light and Shadow training. As Thomas said, I am the real Lillian Tegner. I know there's going to be a few of us here because I sent out my personal Zoom link to everyone. So little interesting technical difficulty to start off with, but thank you all for coming. If you haven't already, let us know what your favorite science memory or children's book was growing up. Here, I'll pass it over to Elizabeth to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Nicolai. I am the Youth Services Coordinator for the Anchorage Public Library. I'm excited to be here today.
And I'm Lily. I'm the after school STEM expansion VISTA for the Alaska After School Network. So I want to start off by welcoming you to the Leap into Science National Network. So the Leap into Science curriculum was originally developed by the Franklin Institute in Pennsylvania. So that's who developed the kits you're going to be using and the curriculum. They decided to collaborate with the National Girls Collaborative to create the Leap into Science National Network, which now has 20 states, including Alaska. So you're part of a large network across the nation. So our goals for today are pretty simple. The first is just to help you understand the main ideas behind Leap into Science and the curriculum, and learn about how it connects science and literacy, and why they made the decision to do that. So we also want you to feel comfortable leading a light and shadow activity, both virtually and in person, and to also understand how to use the Franklin Institute's Core 4 strategies. And finally, understand what the expectations are for you as a Leap into Science participant. So if you haven't already, make sure you change your name on Zoom to display your actual name and your organization. We ask that you keep your video on if possible, but of course, we know Zoom fatigue is a thing. So just if possible, keep your video on. Raise your hand if you want to share. You can also use the chat, obviously, as much as you want, but stay muted if you're not talking, just to limit distractions as much as possible. And remember to move up and move back if you're the type of person that normally speaks up, move back. If you're the type of person that stays in the background a little bit more, feel free to move up and participate as much as possible. So, all right, now I'm going to kick it over to Elizabeth to explain the Leap into Science model.
Hi, so as Lillian said, we are part of this national network, the Franklin Institute. We're the fifth cohort, I believe. And so there are actually three previous curriculums that we can train you on later, but we're going to start on the newest current curriculum, which is the curriculum about light and shadow. But all of the curriculums follow the same model of experience. So there are going to be a series of workshops that integrate open-ended science activities with children's books. When we say series, they can be standalone events. They don't have to be, like, kids do not need to commit to attending every time. They are for children ages 3 to 10 with families. We're going to give you training today that will work for all of those ages. If you want to set up a family workshop, it's also possible to separate this into a preschool and an elementary school age workshop if that works better within your facility. And they are accessible science topics and materials, and they include literature. So every single one includes a high quality children's picture book, as they are literature based, connecting literature and science topics. And they are designed for community based settings, museums, libraries, after school, out of school programs, community groups. This is not really a classroom activity. It's designed, and it can work with just the children or with families together, which is probably what we'll be talking a lot more about today. Okay, so today we're mostly, I said there is a preschool model, which is kind of very similar to the family model. So that's what we're talking about it. And it's the idea of they're station-based within the families. If you do a family activity as station-based and it's a mixture of structured activities, you begin with a structured activity, you have some time for families to experience the stations on their own, and then you come back for a structured activity. Elementary schools, it's a little bit more structured and less free exploratory time if you're working with just the students without their families there. We're also going to talk today about how to do all of this virtually as well. So here are the goals for caregivers and children, which I think honestly, these goals are pretty much going to be your goals as an institution anyways. Have fun living together, learning together. Build critical thinking skills. Build positive attitudes towards science. But what we are not doing is we are not teaching content mastery. We are not subject experts. We are teaching a process and a way of thinking about the world and understanding the world, not specific science concepts. You're not teaching to standards, which makes it more fun. So now we have an activity. This is called a quiet waterfall. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to type in the chat, what skills are children developing when reading the book? So everyone type it. And then when I say go, we're all going to send at the same time. We should see all the chat questions, the answers come together. We're going to use this method a couple of times. So type and wait for me. I'm going to give you a few seconds. What skills do children develop when they read children's books? Chat. Go. I'm seeing lots of imaginations, literacy, critical thinking, bonding, language, listening. Awesome. All right, so we have another question now. Same thing, type your results, wait for me to say go. What skills are children developing when engaging in science activities and how? So type away. Go. I see question, cause and effect, critical thinking, again, curiosity, problem solving, asking and answering questions. All right, and so we have a third question. What common skills do children build across both types of learning? This one is not on our thing, but our third question is, what common skills between children's books and hands-on science do they learn? Same thing, type. We'll give you a couple seconds and then we'll all go together. Go. Connecting, expanding knowledge base, exploration, critical thinking, stimulation of the brain in multiple areas, curiosity, imagination, rich vocabulary. Awesome. Yes. So as you can see, there's a lot of, and I think you all work with children, and you already know that there's a lot in common between these two things, and it's a really beautiful and natural pairing. So some of the common skills that came up, and you guys said a lot of these on your own, which is the idea of both communication, asking questions, observing, making a prediction, interpret the information, drawing inferences and conclusions, and problem solving. A lot of you might recognize this is very, very similar if you're familiar with the engineering cycle or the scientific method. But we're going to talk a little bit later about how this will also work within literature as well. So what is your role as a Leap into Science educator? So we're going to do a breakout activity. We're going to randomly assign you into a breakout group. And from that group, we're going to ask you to nominate a timekeeper and a note taker who will report out for the group. The timekeeper to keep you on track, and the note taker who's going to take notes and report out. Brainstorm together what words and images come to mind when you think about instructing literacy learning. So they do that for the first few minutes. And then I want you to switch and brainstorm what words and images come to mind when you think about facilitating learning. So what happens when you instruct learning versus facilitating learning. And you will have 8 minutes for this activity. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back. I really enjoyed the group I got to sort of listen to with great enjoy. So if we go to the next slide. So if the note takers could please add to the chat some of the brainstorm things. And then, additionally, kind of questions to think about for yourself, as well as when we thought about what you put for the brainstorming, and I know my group sort of naturally went to these questions anyways. What is similar or different across both of facilitating and instruction? And we all work in informal learning school settings. We're not classroom teachers 8 to 5. So what kind of practices match those settings? And if anybody wants to share verbally, please just raise your hand. I'm seeing messages coming. Facilitated is student-centered and instruction is leader-centered. That is a fantastic way to phrase that. Instructing is repetitive, where we all do everything together and get to the same result, whereas facilitating is we're all going to get to the same point, but we're going to find different processes. I really like that explanation too. I'm looking to see if I see any raised hands, if anyone wants to share verbally. Oh, Allie, I see you now, Allie.
Yeah, so I think you can't really have one without the other a little bit, because for me, I feel like when I'm first introducing a concept, it's like you need that instruction piece and then you move into facilitation. So it's kind of like you have to, in the beginning, have both, and then you kind of move more into the facilitation for things.
Absolutely. And I am seeing some agreement in the chat that for instruction to be effective, it has to include, it's ideal to include or have hands-on learning that is facilitated. Absolutely. And I think what I'm seeing in the chat, if I can do a little rephrasing, is that it is a spectrum, as it says there. It's not you're only ever facilitating or only ever instructing, but you're mixing elements and you're sliding yourself back and forth along the spectrum as it goes. Instruction is being told what to do and left alone, and then facilitation is group learning and growth together. Did I miss anybody else that I didn't see the raised hand? If so, please just unmute yourself and share. All right. Hearing nothing, I'm going to talk a little bit about the sort of the facilitation with a tiny bit of instruction strategies that are part of the Leap into Science model. The next chat. So these are called the core 4 strategies. There we go. And the first one is asking questions that are designed to pique curiosity and drive the students towards an investigation. And for that investigation, we are encouraging scientific thinking. We're encouraging the observing, the predicting, and especially the taking risk. So often we know our kids don't take risk because they don't want to be wrong and they don't want to fail. And the best part about science is failing and learning from that. So encouraging that scientific thinking means taking risk and sometimes failing and trying again. Cultivating rich dialogue helps students build beginner key STEM vocabulary, sharing and share their experiences and discoveries with others. It's really easy for kids to just see this is a fun thing. So it's helpful for us to frame it in those scientific words and teach them that vocabulary and that framework so that they understand how they're sharing that out. And making connections. So the activities and the stories should have personal meaning for the students, and they should be able to connect them with their own life experience, that nothing is happening just in this one room in our museum or our library or after school program, but it's happening there and in their real world. So yeah, so as I was saying, like with the ask questions that are meant to pique curiosity, open-ended questions, continue to follow up with questions. Some of the question is when they give an observation to ask a follow-up question. So if they said, I think he's being noisy, why do you think he's being noisy? And then the little boy said, oh, his mouth is open. And when you're quiet, your mouth is usually shut. So encourage scientific thinking was still being done with asking questions. Asking questions is sort of, if you watch the video, I encourage it because it shows some really good interactions. Asking questions is the foundation to make all of the rest of them happen. Encouraging scientific thinking where, what do you think will happen? And the little girl will say, I think it'll spin faster. And she said, and then there was a little boy, I think I need to add more weight. Do you want to try it? Can we work on it together? Continuing to do those things. Or okay, let's try it. Let's see what happens. Making connections. Oh, when you added that more weight, then what happened? So not just making the connections, but again, using the questions to help the kids make the connections. And when you cultivate the rich dialogue, if they're talking to you and they, for example, say they were doing a sound-based one. Oh, it was very quiet. You could, yes, you observed that it was very quiet. So adding in those scientific words. I do encourage watching the video. It is really good. And I think the next one has a poll. I'm seeing lots of about asking questions the most. Scientific thinking is the least. Lots of people are saying making connections the most. Awesome. And some people are saying it's the least. It's such a fun group because we have so many different things. Most asking questions or least, or scientific thinking, or cultivating rich dialogue. All right, thank you all for this. I am now actually going to turn this back over to Lily, and she's going to walk you through what a Leap into Science workshop looks like.
Yeah, so, oh, here am I unmuted? Yep, I am. Okay. So Today, now we're just going to walk you through a basic leap into science workshop. We'll kind of go back and forth between like demonstrating what it's going to look like and also just giving you enough details, examples of questions to use in the workshop. So the idea is just that you'll get an idea of what it looks like while having a chance to sort of participate at the same time. So your job is to, feel free to be the young learner. Like you can ask questions as though you were one of the students. And then, watch for examples of the 4 core strategies that that Elizabeth just described in really good detail. So yeah, just keep those in mind as we go through. So hi everyone, welcome to the Leap into Science Light and Shadow Workshop. I'm so happy to see all of you here. And I'll also, as an aside, I'll say all of these slides are going to be available to you. So if you guys want to do a Leap into Science Light and Shadow workshop virtually, we will provide these slides for you guys to use in those workshops. So feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. You can use it to ask questions and appropriately make observations and predictions. So starting off with some asking questions. Where have you guys seen light and shadows before? Where have you seen shadows in your life at home or at school? What kinds of shadows have you seen? And you can just type that right in the chat. While taking a walk, Shauna says. Trees, clouds, that's a good one. Birds, a lot of you are talking about nature. That's when it's really sunny, right? That's great. So as many of you probably already do this, it's always really great to start off by asking questions because it gets kids engaged right off the bat. From lights and lamps, says Linda. And with the flashlight, oh yeah, flashlights can make shadows. That's great. Okay, I'm sure a lot of you have used flashlights before. Okay, so then, where do you see light and shadows right now? So you can have them look around the room and ask, where do you see light and shadows? The moon, yeah, that's great, Adrienne. So as you start introducing the kids, it's good to ask questions about that too. So what 2 things do we need to make a shadow? I want to say in the chat. Shauna says the wall. Light and an object, says Jerry. Okay, great. So what can we use to make light? Candles, yep. A light source, a bulb, flashlights, says Cindy. Okay, great. So I have some flashlights right here. So also I'm gonna say, how many of you do, if you guys want to type in the chat, how many of you have received a light and shadow kit? Or rather, if you haven't received a light and shadow kit, let me rephrase that. If you haven't received a light and shadow kit, let us know in the chat. That way we can kind of keep track of who has one and who doesn't. Just showed up yesterday, that's great. Just so we know, we're really happy about the fact that we get to provide these kits for free. So we want to make sure all of you have one. They're really cool kits. They have a lot of cool materials, and a lot of thought was put into their development at the Franklin Institute. And we're, like I said, we're really happy that we have enough funding as well as supplemental funding to provide them all for free. So make sure you let us know in the chat. Okay. So we need light and an object to make a shadow. So this is the part where you're gonna engage the students by making a shadow. You can kind of see me making one here. My screen is a little blurred, but you're just gonna make a shadow and then ask as many questions as you can think of to get the kids thinking about the shadow that they see. So you can ask things like, what do you notice about the shadow you see on the wall? What does the shadow look like compared to the block if you're making a shadow using one of our blocks that are provided in the kit? How is it different than the shape of the block? How could you make the shadow smaller? What else can we change about the shadow by moving the light? So those kinds of things, that's all getting into the asking questions, one of the core 4 strategies. So, and then after you engage, after you would want to spend like 5 to 10 minutes on the engagement portion of the activity where you're introducing the topic and asking a lot of questions and following up with the students. After that engage portion, you're going to begin doing the reading, the story time. And so for that, I'm gonna again kick it back over to Elizabeth, and she's gonna demonstrate how to read a book related to light and shadow using the core 4 strategies. So Elizabeth, take it away.
I was fairly insistent that as a children's librarian, I got to read the book. And many of you I know are also children's librarians. So what I'm going to do is going to be very familiar. If you're in the library world, we sometimes call this dialogic reading. And if you're not, don't worry, it'll make sense as we go along. Books are selected and designed to have clear depictions of the phenomenon that children will be exploring, and to provide another avenue for kids to see how the concept they are exploring is connected to everyday life. If you have the book and you want to grab it out of your kit and follow along that way, fantastic. Otherwise, it'll be up on the screen for you. Before you begin the book, it can be helpful to ask questions like, what do you think this book will be about? What do you notice about the cover? What do you think will happen in this story? What makes you think that will happen? As I said, this is going to be dialogic reading. It's good to ask those open-ended questions. So I will ask if somebody wants to volunteer in the chat, what do you think from the cover that this book is going to be about? Night. Let's see, night is one of our answers. Good job. It does look like night. Or turn page. It started out. Lillian, if you could turn the page, or Thomas. There. It started out as a normal summer night. The city was loud and hot. Turn the page. Inside, everyone was busy. What do you guys see people doing? Talking, wanting to play a game, cooking, arguing with their siblings, cooking, talking on the phone. And this is if you wanted to, you could follow up questions like, do you ever argue with your siblings? Or if you want to get really advanced, you say, everyone has, what do you see that all the pictures have? But that might be a little bit too advanced depending on your group. We'll go to the next page. Much too busy. What is, and then, oh my gosh, what do you think is going to happen? What's about to happen? Blackout? Oh, you think because that's the name? I apologize. We're having an announcement. Oh, cool. So we're about to test our fire alarm system. So my apologies. This is a test, not an alarm, but it's apparently about to be a fire alarm test. I apologize. Okay. And then the lights went out. All of them. Raise your hand if you've ever had all the lights go out at your house. And see, if you don't want to break up the energy too much, you can do things like that just get a quick response without having to do it open-ended. Next page. Mom! How do you think she's feeling? Scared, yeah. I don't know if you could hear the fire alarm, but and there's a fire alarm. Cool. Okay, next page. Nothing worked at all. What wasn't working? What isn't working? Power, What do we need power for? What doesn't work without power? Electronics, the light. What light do you see on this page? I still see a light. What light do you see? A flashlight. Raise your hand if you have a flashlight at your house. Good job, Alaskans, for having flashlights. Way to be prepared. The city, next page. The city was dark and quiet and still. What's different from this page from the last city page? Almost all the lights, there's only the one light right back, right? All the other lights are out. Next page. You don't have to ask a question on every page. It works for your timing, your group's energy. We huddled around flashlights and candles. Where do you see a shadow? Oh yeah, on the wall. What shapes of shadows do you see? Hand puppets on the wall. What shapes? Oh, you see the cat and the bunny. What is making the shadow? You guys already answered that. It's the hand puppets. Until it was too hot and sticky to sit inside. Can we go? So we went up and up and up to the rooftop and found, what do you guys think they're going to find? What are they going to find on the rooftop? The stars, maybe? Let's see. The lights. Oh my goodness, what lights did they find? They found the stars. That's right. Where else? Do you see any shadows in this picture? Where do you see a shadow? Oh, that building is called a water tower. That's right, it's on the water tower. What two things are making that shadow? What two things make the shadow? The flashlight and the cat. That's right, it took the two things to make the shadow. And people. It was a block party in the sky. We waved to everyone. And then we heard other sounds below. So we went down and down and down to the street. Come on. A party was going on there too. Where do you see lights in this picture? Everywhere, candles and flashlights, the fire truck headlights, so many great places. And no one was busy at all. When the lights came back on, everything went back to normal. What do you think is going to happen now? What is she reaching for? What do you think she's going to do? The light switch. What do you think she's going to do with the light switch? Turn it off? But not everyone likes normal. I gotta go. So you see she's hanging up on the phone. And now everyone is going to play the game with her. And her dad is saying, good idea, buddy. The end. And that is there's also a video online that also demonstrates the interactive open-ended question reading style. And this book is in your kits to include to read with this packets. And I'm going to turn it back over to Lily now.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was awesome. Yeah, so, and I also just want to emphasize the book, as well as another option for the book called Dreams by Ezra Jack Keats. Those are both available and they're both in your kits. Everything you'll need to do this activity is provided in the kit, as well as a book that's sort of meant for a little bit younger age. If you have like 3 to 5 instead of 5 to 10. So just want to remind everyone those are provided in the kits as well. So after you finish reading the book, you'll begin the shadow investigation. So this is kind of a kids-led activity where they get to explore on their own, and you get to kind of just guide them as they do that. So first you can have the students go on a shadow hunt, looking for shadows around the room. If you're doing this in person, you can definitely get creative with it. You can set up shadows kind of around your learning space, whatever that is, whether it's a library or museum, or if you're doing this virtually, like I said, you can have them just go around their house, and you can even have them go outside if the weather is good. So definitely get creative with the shadow hunt. And good, after they find a shadow, remember to ask good follow-up questions like what's making the shadow, where's the light coming from that's making it, and where have you seen a shadow like that before? Okay. So here's where it kind of splits off. So we're going to talk about the differences between the elementary and the family light and shadow workshops. So elementaries are originally designed to be for when parents aren't present. So the main difference is you go through the activity all together as a group. And the main way you do this is by giving every kid their own flashlight and letting them make a shadow with the blocks that we have provided in the kits. Have them explore using their whiteboard or some construction paper and a flashlight and blocks, and allow them to make the shadow bigger, make it darker, change the angle, be creative with it, and ask them to explore with shadows and guide them in that as they go. And then after that is the shadow challenge. So in your kits, already cut out for you, are these shadow challenge cards. Here, I'll let you guys see. Oh, it's gonna blur. Yeah. Oh, well, that's okay. Oh, here, now you can see it. So these are shadow challenge cards that give different shadows of the blocks that are pictures of shadows, basically, that were made using the blocks. And the idea is that you're going to have the kids, as you kind of see in the pictures here, try and make the same shapes using the blocks and their flashlights and the whiteboards, and then trace out new ones and have them like share that with their peers, try and make the same shadows using the blocks. So it's allowing them to build, observe, use their critical thinking skills. And it's a fun activity. You can spend a lot of time doing that, asking them questions about how they came to their different conclusions. You can definitely have fun with it and spend a lot of time doing it. And after the activity portion, there is a second book. And this is What is a Scientist by Barbara Len. So this is a really cool book. It was designed to, build, oh, you can't see it. It was designed to build STEM identity in kids. And you'll use this book for all 3 of the Leap into Science workshops. So Light and Shadow, Wind and Balance, you'll come back to this book for the reflection portion of the activity. And again, it comes in your kit and you'll be able to use it for every single one. So I'm not going to read the entire thing. And because you're using it 3 different times, you don't necessarily have to go through the whole book at the same time either. You can kind of choose strategic pages that relate to the activities that you're doing. So I'll give you an example. A scientist asks questions and tries different ways to answer them. You totally can't see that. A scientist asks questions and tries different ways to answer them. So then you would ask, did you guys ask questions today? What kind of questions did you ask? And so on and so forth. Another one is a scientist draws what she sees. So you can ask, what kind of things did you guys draw today? Did you guys draw the shadows that you saw, and ask them what kinds of shadows did you draw, that kind of thing. So this is a really good book. And of course, we always like to, they encourage that you end on the page, a scientist has fun. So the idea behind this book is it shows that the kids can engage in the scientific inquiry process, you know, naturally and joyously, and that it helps them see themselves as scientists. So that's a really good resource, and that's provided in your kit. Also, you will have access to a Leap into Science question guide. So we basically took you through all 4 stages of the Leap into Science workshop. So this gives you ideas of questions you can ask through all 4 of those stages that'll help to kind of guide the kids in their own scientific inquiry process. So now on to the Family Light and Shadow workshop. If you guys have any questions about this, make sure to just, you know, drop it in the chat, or you can raise your hand, and I think Thomas will be able to, you know, unmute you if I'm missing anything. So yeah, feel free to ask. Yeah.
Jump in for a moment. So as Lily and Elizabeth were saying, so we initially, when we had folks sign up, we had kind of the 2 curriculums broken apart. So we had, you could either sign up for a school age training, that was the elementary based one. That's designed like what Lily was just showing, going through those elements. It was designed to be if you're just facilitating this with students. So if only students are there and no families. The family curriculum workshop then was designed to be if you were in more of a community-based setting, like a public library or a museum where you have families there with students, or maybe you are using this for a family night activity at your after-school program. It's designed to be facilitated with the family there. Either of these curriculums, you are all, I know almost everyone on this call are very, I've seen a lot of you facilitate fantastic activities, are easily adaptable. So you can use either or. That's why we combined the 2 trainings together. We also are short staffed right now, so that was part of it. And we wanted to make sure that you had access in the information for both curriculum sets. So that's why you'll see some says the kind of elementary age, some says family. There is also stuff on preschool. We know some of our library friends are working with preschoolers as well. But that's why we just brought everyone together into one training, because the content is so similar and interchangeable. We wanted to give you options, knowing that some of you may use it one time as a family night and other times just with students. So I just wanted to kind of give some clarification on that. All right, I'll turn it back over to you, Lily, for family.
Yeah, no, thank you for pointing that out, because there was, I mean, we combined everything at the end, and it's important to emphasize you guys are going to have access to both the family and the elementary kit supplies, and obviously the instructions and the training. So there's no reason why you have to have parents present for this Family Light and Shadow workshop. The only difference is the family workshop has stations, but stations don't necessarily preclude or need to include having parents there, as long as you feel that you have enough staff or can manage the stations. There's no reason why you can't do the family curriculum for having just kids present. So it's definitely totally adaptable to both ways. So the Family Light and Shadow workshop. So as I kind of just said, it's the main difference is the stations. It's a little more self-directed. You can either have parents, like families, moving through the stations together with their kids, or you can have kids just in groups moving through the stations together. But you'll follow the same process. So you'll start with engaging, asking questions all together. You'll read the book, either Dreams or Blackout. And then for the activity portion, there'll be the stations as opposed to just the shadow challenge cards. And then of course you'll end with reflection and with the book What is a Scientist by Barbara Len. So our first station is Let It Shine. So this is where you're going to be looking through this plastic bin that's at the top of your kit if you have it. And that contains all of these items that are either transparent, translucent, or opaque. Meaning you can, if it's transparent, you can see through it. If it's translucent, you can't see through it, but light will show through it. And opaque, no light will show through it. So you're just gonna have kids sort through those different items. So, and this is in your instructions too, but I'll go over it really quick. Transparent, we have plastic cups, plastic takeout containers, and page protectors. For translucent objects, we have another plastic cup, some bubble wrap, and some wax paper. And for opaque, we have felt squares, plastic cups, and some cardboard. I want to point out that these felt squares, you can, I don't know if the Franklin Institute had thicker felt squares than what we bought, but these you can definitely see light through. So I'll just emphasize, the items can be anything. If you can see light through them, just keep in mind that's a translucent object, and opaque objects like the blocks, or you can use the wooden spoon or the cardboard. Those are the items that you can't see light through. And if you're doing this virtually, a good way to adapt that is you could just have the students look in their room or in their house, maybe with the parent for an object that's translucent, one that's transparent, and one that's opaque, and then have them share with the group. So this is definitely adaptable. You can use any items in your learning space for that. Okay, and then this is a similar activity, except you're sorting items that are reflective and non-reflective. So again, having the kids sit down, ask them questions, ask them to sort through, ask why they chose to put the reflective object in the reflective pile. What was it that led them to that conclusion? That kind of thing. And you'll have, again, plenty of reflective objects and non-reflective objects to choose from. The guide to those is in your instructions, so I don't feel like I need to go into that much detail over that. Okay, and then station 3, you'll focus on moving shadows and changing shapes. Moving shadows is a little bit more geared towards younger students. So instead of asking them to do more complex things, you're just kind of seeing if they can move the shadow up and down. How can they make it bigger or smaller? Older kids, you can ask, can you make the block, can you make a rectangle out of the triangle block? So can you make the triangle block make a rectangle by tilting it? You could have them sort through a number of blocks and ask, which block can you make the most shapes with? So having them explore with the blocks and seeing how many different types of shadows they can make. They can make it darker, bigger, smaller, make it land on a specific point, that kind of thing, and asking questions along the way. Station 4, this is basically the shadow challenge station for the family curriculum. So you'll have, again, your shadow challenge cards and the whiteboard so that they can draw and trace out their shadow that they make, trying to make the same shape as what's in the shadow challenge card. And they'll also have, they can also make a hand shadow. And these cards are also in your kit. This is more maybe for like younger who might not be able to play with the blocks as well. They can just have fun making hand shadows. So yeah, designed for ages 3 to 10, and there's options for that at every station. And then station 5 and 6, these are more opportunities for reflection. Well, station 5 is actually a young scientist station. So again, young kids, like younger than 5, you can have them look at different objects, shine their flashlight on it, and just ask, like, what parts of the object are dark? How do you make those parts of the object brighter by changing where your flashlight is? Asking really simple questions about how the light affects the objects that they're looking at. And then station 6, that's an opportunity for reflection. So you can get creative with this one. They can draw pictures of the shadows that they've seen. They can write poems, anything any way they want to creatively express what they've learned is great for this station. And I want to point out, I didn't do this before, but all of these tent cards are there. So in your kit, you'll find cardstock with both English and Spanish of these cards that you can fold in half and set up at the station. So that's all prepared for you. And you can do it in any order that you want. You can split these up into different stations. So you have one row for younger and one row for older if you want, or you can keep them all together. However you want to set your stations up is totally fine. And then you can also have a separate station, which is just talk about light and shadow, where you can have books. If you're a library, you can just have a station with books that relate to light and shadow. You can have dreams and blackout there and what is a scientist, and have kids read through on their own or with their families if they're there to reflect on light and shadow. Okay, and if you are doing, if you do have caregivers present, you can print out as many of these question guides as you want and hand them out to caregivers when they arrive to kind of help them go through the stations with their kids and ask questions and engage in those core 4 strategies as they're kind of helping to facilitate. But again, I mean, I can emphasize, you don't need to have families present to do the stations. You can get creative with it and use all of these materials in any way that you want. You can use the stations and go through together as a group, or do stations just in groups. So it's totally up to you guys. Okay, and with that, that's like perfect. Oh, well, we're like 12 minutes over halfway through, but that's okay. We're gonna take a 5-minute brain break. So yeah, I'll see you guys back here in 5 minutes. We'll come back at 10:17. Is that okay? Okay. All right. Thank you guys.
Thanks everyone for joining us back, and we will keep going with the training.
Okay, so I am going to talk to you about reflecting on what a LEAP workshop looks like. So the workshop sequence is pretty standard if it's family or elementary. You start with an engaging, fun activity to bring everyone in. And this one might be finding shadows. It's a good thing to do as people are arriving. If you're in a facility where people arrive at different times, it's a good way to focus attention. If you're in an after school program where you might have the kids transitioning between activities. And a lot of times with us in the light and shadow, that means starting off with questions to pique curiosity, asking children to evoke their own life experiences and observation of their surroundings as they introduce the topic. All of this that you really can't see on the screen is a little bitty thing. It's a great PDF with examples for each of this. It will be in your materials. We're getting you that website link on very soon. So then you're going to transition into an interactive story time. There's 2 book options, Blackout that I read, and then the other book that you're seeing right now, Blackout, is by John Rocco. I actually also realized I did not introduce the author and illustrator, which is terrible on me as a children's librarian, because I usually emphasize that. So please introduce the children's author and illustrator. And then the other book is Dreams by Ezra Jack Keats, that is included in your things. And then they're going to explore, and this is either with your stations or working together through the activities together. Go deeper with the shadow investigation, use the shadow challenge cards that Lee showed you, allow kids to make their own shadows, lots of great fun things. And then finally, the most important part of the activity, and making sure to leave time for this at the end, is reflection. And that's where often you read that What is a Scientist book, and you talk about what science skills do you use when you look at your 4 this is your deliberate making connections with rich vocabulary, with that scientific vocabulary. So it's pretty fun. You bring people together when it's an engaging activity, stay together for the reading, split up maybe for the stations or the interactive parts, and then come back together to reflect. So you can see we have a little bit of that, a lot of that facilitation and a little bit of that instruction. Next slide. Okay, to adapt this for virtual, and again, this thing that looks like a PDF will be a PDF available to you with some things. So maintain that general structure with an engaging activity, questions, connecting to the real world to begin with, reading the book, but when you get to the part, then try to make this multi-sensory. Use slide decks, use visuals. I got a question privately about, are the books available electronically? Some are, some aren't. I'm going to make sure I'm going to run through and do a resource, and I'll send out an email with resources to what electronic versions, but you're also going to get a slide deck that will be available to you through the online thing, through the website. The Leap into Science has sort of a presenter's website. But yeah, so, and when you do adapt virtually, I turned off my virtual background so you could see my office wall is not blank. It would not be a good place for me to do this. I have a flashlight here. I can't really make shadows because there you can't see them. And it's kind of light in here, and we can't turn the lights off. All of our lights in our building are motion detectored and you can't turn them off. So, and that's another thing that we're also going to work at for our entire Leap into Science experience is we have a couple rooms we can turn the lights off on that we will use, or we are going to actually take our tents we use for outdoor events and set them up inside to make little science shadow areas. So make sure, test it out, make sure it all works. And if I was going to do this, and I probably will be doing this virtually for kids, I would use a combination of pre-sending home some materials to kids. And even if they held it up to the light in their room, if they don't have a shadow, they could still hold it up to their ceiling light, as well as using a different room personally, since there's no way I can make shadows in here really for you. Nope, can't really see my shadows, not too well. So not a great facility for that. And I would be closer to the wall so that the shadows would show up better. My wall is a little bit farther behind me. So like I said, this is not a great room for me to do it virtually. I would play with that a lot more. There's some really good virtual tips on there. And I would continue to maintain using the 4 strategies, working on polls, the silent waterfall, and recognizing the age of the children I'm working with developmentally. Is it better to just turn on the things and let everyone sort of yell at the same time? Or is it better, are they at the late age and level where they're typing in chat? And most importantly, do not record the sessions because there's all sorts of permissions with kids' faces on video. And Franklin Institute and Leap into Science do not want you to record sessions. So preparing for the Leap into Shadow, gather and test your materials. It took me an embarrassing long time to find my flashlight this morning. And when I opened my kit, which I will also confess I did this morning, about 5 minutes before the presentation started, I realized I didn't have any batteries. Embarrassing amount of long time to find a flashlight that worked, y'all. So is the space dim enough to make a shadow? Again, that's where we're talking about. We're looking at literally putting a tent inside to make a shadow space. Is there a wall or vertical surface? Nope. Is the shadow well defined enough that you can see it from the camera? Again, nope. I'm here today to demonstrate what not to do for you. Practice your activities, including reading your book aloud. Okay, so we're going to do the quiet storm again. So today, did you see any examples of the core 4 modeled as we did this today? And we know that we did not, the traditional version of this training involves us actually having you all in the same room and literally having you be the children and do the activities. So this is a little bit of a harder question. So you can either answer it this way, or could you give me one way that you would use a core 4 strategy with one of the activities that you learned about today? Because we understand that we did not walk you fully through at experiencing it as young learners. So
Yeah,
type, and then I will say go.
Also, I just wanted to say about the flashlights really quick. I don't know if some of you already discovered this, but just in case, and the note that came with the flashlights is also in there. But there's a little plastic tab that you have to take out inside the flashlight because it's stored with a plastic tab. So in order to get it to work, you have to take that little thing out to get the flashlight to work. It took me a minute to discover that, so I just figured I'd let you guys know. But yeah, all the flashlights should be working. You just got to go in and take that thing out before you use it.
That is good to know. 1 second.
Yeah. yeah, it's just like a tiny little plastic thing in between the battery when you unscrew the battery of it. Yeah.
Okay, see, I didn't even try that. I didn't go very far with my scientific curiosity at all today. I was just like, I pushed the button, I was like, nope, doesn't work, moving on.
Yeah. Well, there's right. I tried to include the little note that came with it in the instructions, but it may have gotten buried, and I didn't realize until I was like kind of making the kits that I needed to include that. So anyway, there's that tidbit of information in case anyone misses it.
So I can't make great shadows on the wall because I have a bad setup. So hopefully you've had a chance to either talk about how you saw it modeled or you would use it. So I'm going to say go. Please send your quiet storm of responses. Questions during the book. Likes how the scientist book offers an excellent way for closure. Questions. Awesome. Additional materials to have children practice with the new vocabulary. That sounds great. I love these answers. Awesome. So moving to the next. Okay. So we're going to do a breakout discussion. And we're over time. Thomas, do we want to shorten this to 5 minutes instead of 8 minutes? 5 minutes, good. Okay, so the breakout discussion, again, random groups. And how have you been engaging with children and families during the COVID-19 pandemic? And how do you plan to use Leap into Science workshops during this time? And again, try to have at least one person who will share out either in the notes or verbally what you guys talked about.
Rooms are open.
Hi.
Hi.
All right.
Adrian.
I am just putting in the chat for everyone so they remember what the prompt is. So the prompts for us are, how have you been engaging children and families during COVID-19 pandemic? And how do you plan to use a Leap into Science workshop during this time? We know it is wacky, to say the least, on programming right now. So we'd love to hear from you. What ways have you been adapting your programming now, and how do you see yourself being able to still integrate Leap into Science as things continually change?
This is Adrian from Nenana Public Library. We've been a little bit of virtual story time off and on. And then we've been open pretty much for a long time, having children come in, do stuff. We had a great summer reading program this summer and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, we've been
Like, how about
going,
yourselves?
so I work for the Center for Alaskan Coastal Studies, and we've been going, we've been running like day camps and overnight camps with mitigation policies in place, like masking up and social distancing. So I feel like with the Leap into Science, we'll probably end up doing either like a small family night or using the curriculum with a couple of the after school clubs that we are running.
Great, yeah, that's the nice part about and why we combine the school age one and the family one together, is because we know, especially with COVID, that sometimes that ability to do one thing has to immediately change the next day based on the kind of changes we keep seeing in programming and in our communities. So that was another big reason why we combined the two trainings together. Sam, how about yourself? How's your programming during COVID-19, and how do you see yourself using?
Sorry about that. I was actually on the call the first hour via my phone. But so what we've done, we're partnered with the University of Alaska Fairbanks, or we're through University of Alaska Fairbanks, and our mitigation plan basically for the summer, they allowed us to have up to 20 students in the building at once, as long as they weren't as long as they were different students. So basically our whole 4-H summer series, we designed it in 2-week cohorts, and they were based on the 4-H's: head, heart, health, and hands. And we did, all kinds of different things through that. Everybody wore masks, children and adults. And then there was a point where the university said adults didn't have to wear masks anymore, so we didn't. But then there was a minor COVID outbreak 2 days before the last summer series ended. So since then, we have not had anybody back in the building. But as the fall is going on, we are going to continue kind of in that similar fashion with just 2-week small group cohorts. And the majority of them are going to be virtual. And then with, say, like a final project or whatever, being in person for that one day. But that's kind of really, we really struggled with it, trying to figure out which way this was going to go. And we kind of wanted to make sure that however we did it, we wanted to make sure that it was all about consistency, so that they weren't in the building one week and then they couldn't be the next week, and back and forth and back and forth. So we just decided for this fall semester up to the Christmas break, it's just all going to be virtual with small groups, and then we'll bring them in occasionally. So that's how we've been handling it.
Great. Sam, how do you think you're really going to be able to use LEAP in that type of program setting?
Well, we in the spring, actually in the fall and the spring, well, the fall before I got here, but in the spring we did something called Camp Invention, which is all about STEM. And I've done STEM stuff before. I'm an educator. I've been a percussion and music educator for my whole life. So I'm always in K through 12 and higher education institutions all over the country. And we did the same thing with STEM. We had it virtually at first, and then we would pull them in for the very last kind of project. And ironically, later on today, I'm going to be doing the STEM Summit all the way through the weekend. So it starts this afternoon and 7 hours tomorrow, and it's 4 hours Sunday. So I definitely plan on using a lot of the concepts. And when I teach music, I always tell my students and educators when I'm giving clinics or conferences that, I teach life lessons through music, and it's all about promoting thought and growth. And that's really how I see Leap into Science and STEM in the same ways with 4-H youth. Is just really, especially in rural Bethel, Alaska, where, it's a mostly native population, Native Alaska population. We're not on the road system. So really just trying to bring concepts from the lower 48 or around the world, and just exposing the youth to things and just broadening their horizons. So that's how I've planned to use music. I've brought rudimental drumming to Bethel. Now I'm going to jump into the science stuff. So really, again, it's just all about just getting them exposed to things that they wouldn't normally have access to here.
Great.
So thanks for asking.
And I think we are back in our main breakout room, and I'm going to turn it back over to Elizabeth.
Hi, thank you. I was enjoying hearing everybody in my breakout room. If we wanted to do a share out, if you wanted to share in the chat or in person, if anyone wanted to share how you've been engaging in COVID-19 and sort of how you would see that this would fit in. A thing I heard a lot in my group, especially, and I know that all of us are feeling, is the case counts are, of course, so high right now, and the future seems unpredictable, that I know it just continues to be so hard to make plans. But I am interested in just hearing, as you guys are formulating, what you're thinking.
I know I was talking about this is very likely going to morph as we go along. I envision it right now as being an in-person program, especially if we get going when the weather is still nice out, and could keep in the larger areas or could keep outside, schedule it, especially, it's going to be a bit of a balance, but especially with like light and shadow, you could get that dusk time and hit the weather before it gets true wintry and do some outside stuff. Might morph to inside. Depends a little bit on how many people are signing up, how many people are actually going to show up for a program versus if we think that could be safe or not here. But I think we're going to probably try to do some virtual or in-person or mixed in-person virtual off the bat.
Anyone else? MC Marguerite says in Nome, they continued the craft kits, which are popular, and doing virtual programming and receiving more requests for that. And that program will work very well, combining craft distribution kit and virtual facilitation and instruction. And I know I heard MJ and Juno saying the same thing. Yeah, Adrian is saying trying virtual, as well as Linda. Yeah. So if we go back to the slides, Lily, I don't see Lily. Oh, there she is. There we go. Okay. So we did the share out. So sort of the guidelines for the workshops. So obviously, like I said, prepare and practice. Be a little bit more prepared. Lead all sections of the workshop sequence. So again, do the engaging, read of the book, interactive activities, and then a reflection. Those 4 sections need to all be there. Using the 4 core strategies, which are the asking open-ended questions, the making the connections, the cultivating rich dialogue, encouraging scientific thinking. And then the last one is, of course, to engage children and caregivers inclusively. So don't talk to just the parents or talk to the kids. Hey, families, let's try this together. Hey, grown-ups, help your child. Hey, child, help your grown-up do this. Can you show your grown-up what you just saw? Those 4 things are sort of the non-negotiable. That's what we really need you to do. What's flexible? Everything else. The materials, if what works, we hope that what we sent you works for you. If it doesn't, you guys are all amazing. And there's no one like a children's educator. MacGyver has nothing on the average like child's educator for the ability to whip something together from like 2 toilet paper tubes and a craft stick. Your length, your time, your location, in person, virtual, all of that. Generally it's suggested 45 minutes to an hour, shorter, longer, however that goes. One thing that we've talked about with Anchorage Public Library is this idea of always available activities that take about 10 to 15 minutes to do that are available in the library. So families are not coming together in giant groups, but coming in one at a time, totally distanced. And that might be harder to do with this because and still get those 4 sequences, but shorter things might work better. So you can cycle more families through and less people all at once, but in things. The number of attendees, there's no attendee goal. If 2 people show up, that's amazing. If 200 people show up, I hope that works for you. It's hard for me to comprehend a 200-person event right now, but someday we'll get back there. And if you don't like the read aloud book, I'm picky on books. I happen to actually really like all the books in the kit. If you don't, find one that works for you that you can do interactive with and that includes these light and shadow concepts. I am going to turn this back over to Lily to talk about resources to help you hit these expectations.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just, we're 20 minutes left, but I'm just gonna stick to the important stuff so that you guys know what's expected of you as a Leap into Science participant so that both you and we are complying with the grant that we received. So we wanna make sure you know exactly what is expected of you in exchange for receiving the kits and being a part of this program. So starting off with resources, really quick, I'm going to take you to leap.fi.edu. You'll need a login, which you will receive to access this resource. So here, I'm gonna stop sharing and then share my screen again so that you guys can see the different resources that you're going to use. And I'll just show you both leap.fi.edu and the Connectory, which is the two sites that you guys are going to be using as Leap into Science participants. And you will receive your logins to both of those in the coming weeks. I'll send out an email, and you'll also receive an email from Leap into Science after they receive your login information. So,
I'm going to pop in here that Leap into Science email went to my junk mail folder. So just keep looking for it.
That is definitely, yeah, you'll definitely want to check your junk mail for the Leap into Science. So that happened to me too. So yeah, so when you go to leap.fi.edu, again, you'll receive this link. You won't be logged in yet. You'll receive a login in your junk mail, which you'll use to access. And the reason you'll need that is because the educator tab won't show up until you log in. After you log in, which I'll do right now, you can navigate to the educators tab. You won't have a state leaders tab, but you'll have all these resources available to you. There's some listed here. You'll see a link to go schedule your workshop in the Connectory, a link for the workshop report, which you'll do after you hold your workshop, and then an ability to share on Facebook, which is a little more optional, but it really would be really helpful if you do that too, because we always love seeing what you guys do, and it allows us to share from the network the programs that we're a part of and all of our participants. Another really helpful tab that you'll again need to log in to access is the curricula tab. This one has everything you need, including webinar recordings of the national Leap into Science, their webinar recording of all the trainings. And then a list of materials for all three. You have links here to access. Everything you need is on this site to access all of these materials from Amazon. If you need to order more, if you want to order more, those are all there. Then that's for light and shadow, wind and balance. Also the video that you guys didn't get to see because it was super choppy. All of those videos are here, including the core 4 strategies, a Leap overview. There are videos on all three of the curricula for both for elementary, preschool, and family. Except there's no family one for light and shadow. I'm not sure why. Anyway, everything you need is going to be here. Now I'm going to show you guys the Connectory. The reason you're going to need the Connectory is this is where you're going to schedule your workshops. What we would like, what's going to be required of you guys is to at least schedule your first workshop by the time we meet next on November 17th. So that's one of the main expectations, that you have your first workshop scheduled by the next time we meet. You can hold it before we meet too. That would be great, but you should at least have it scheduled and have it scheduled before May of 2022. So to sign up for the Connectory, you're going to go to theconnectory.org. Again, there should be a link right here. I can even go to the educator tab and kind of show you if we're doing okay on time. To schedule your workshop. So you can go straight from leap.fi.edu to do that, and then go to the provider portal and sign up. You'll just follow all the steps to sign up. I don't think I need to walk you through the whole thing because there's a lot of processes. They want a lot of information. You'll also have to wait to get it approved. So that'll show up in your email just a few days after you sign up. So I'm going to log in to kind of show you what it's going to look like when you do log in, how you'll schedule it. So after you're logged in, after you're approved, you'll log into your Connectory portal and you'll just click add another opportunity. So your opportunity is going to be your Leap into Science workshop. And we want, like I said, we want you to schedule your light and shadow workshop before November 17th, which is the next time we meet our WINS training. So, and it's really simple. You're just going to give a description, the name, the provider, which is going to be you, the type, and then the location. You'll go through a few steps here. If you have any questions, just let me know. I won't walk through the whole thing just in the interest of time. Hopefully this gives you a good enough idea of what it'll look like to log on to the Connectory and enter your opportunities. So those are the two online resources that you guys are going to be working with. And yeah, I think I can probably stop sharing here and go back to the slides, unless anyone has any questions. I can go back if you guys are unclear on anything.
I will just add in, this is Thomas again with the network. So the usage of the Connectory is one of the requirements we had from the Franklin Institute to receive the grant to provide the free curriculum and training and supplies to all of you. So please help us out. We would love to keep bringing free content and free material to all of you. And that's one of the ways that that is one of our requirements for it. So if we don't see your program in the Connectory yet, Lily will be reaching out to you to be able to help get you added in. If you have any problems along the way, this is Lily's kind of key project during her Vista year of service as an AmeriCorps member. So she is here to kind of help out in whatever way makes it easiest for you to do so.
Yeah, definitely just email if you have any questions. Okay.
So if we are going, if we are going to do this as a takeaway project and not be gathering together, how would that be documented in that form?
Right, because it would be virtual. Let me see if that's even an option.
So, and Lily, I think I can jump in and ask this. So the main part is that you're saying, if you know, MJ, if you said, hey, we are going to be doing this at, we're going to send out the kits, I would say that's your workshop. If you were mailing out the kits and you knew you were doing a virtual reading of the book, then you date of the virtual reading of the book to say that's the day you're doing it. So that, be creative. It's not perfect. The in these systems were not designed for a pandemic in mind. Lessons learned for all of us. So yeah, anyway, the important part is just putting it in there, because the Connectory is a national system to be able to see STEM education opportunities across the country.
Thank you for that question. That's good that we touched on that. Okay, and then I already went over this again. You'll receive an email with your account information next week sometime. I just need to send them a complete registration list, and so they prefer us to wait until we have everyone to contact them and let them know who needs a login. So you guys will get that soon, and you'll have access to all these online resources. And remember to check your spam. I showed you guys this. This is the curricula tab, really useful videos tab. Check them out, they're really cool. So expectations. So we've already been going over this a little bit. So what are you expected to do after today? So there's an educator handbook available with really specific stuff about what the expectations are. I am going to say it's very long. If you have any questions about expectations, I would say instead of trying to find it, you can definitely just email me, because it's not only there is a ton of PDFs on leap.fi.edu. But this is there if you need it, if you want to look things up. It gives very specific information on timeline, but also email me if you need. Okay, expectations. So number one, schedule workshops in the Connectory, which I went over. We want you to lead 3 workshops by May of 22. Again, it's a requirement as a part of this national program that our participants lead 3 Leap into Science workshops by this deadline. So the big expectation on your end is just that you're able to lead 3 of these workshops. One of the main things. And after each one, they want you to complete a workshop report after each. Again, this is linked at leap.fi.edu in the educator tab. And I'll also send out a link, because it's just a simple a Google form. So I can send out a link for that too. And this goes to the national networks. This goes to the Franklin Institute. They use it to keep track of how well their program is working and the curriculum, the training, all of that. So be sure to do that too. And then this is participate in National Leap into Science Week. So if you can hold a workshop during Leap into Science Week this week here, that's great because that's awesome. We get to promote that as a week-long event. It's another way you can help with this is just by posting pictures, sending us pictures of the activity, giving descriptions of what was fun and what worked. That way we can kind of put out promotional materials that way, and that helps us celebrate Leap into Science Week. So, and then of course the most important thing is attend all these trainings if you can. We really prefer if you are there. Of course we will make recordings available, but you can attend these trainings. WIND will be at 9 a.m. on November 17th, and then Balance on 9 a.m. at January 21st. This closing session is going to be just to check in to make sure that you're not having any trouble with any of the resources or getting anything done, just to kind of see where everyone's at and make sure everything is, all the expectations are being completed and no one's having any trouble with that. So, and then the Connectory, I showed you guys, this is, and like Thomas described, this is a resource from National Girls Collaborative, and it's required that you guys post your workshops on there. Here's some, and again, we'll provide these slides so you have this written out walkthrough. I can even provide something in the email next week about how to use the Connectory if you guys want more detail on that. And yeah, just a reminder, post your first workshop by November 7th.
I'm going to interrupt you really quickly, Lily. One thing, when you go back to the expectations that I didn't hear you say, and I want to make sure it's clear, when we say lead 3 workshops, you can lead 3 light workshops, or there are 2 other curriculums, the WIND and Balance. There's a WIND workshop and a Balance workshop, and we will be offering trainings on those later coming up. And so if you want to do a light and shadow workshop, a WIND workshop, and a Balance workshop, that would be 3 workshops as well. It doesn't have to be 3 light and shadow workshops. Just, I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, totally. It's 3 is what you're required to do, and it can be 3 light and shadow workshops, or it can be 1 of each, or it can be another combination. It's just you need to lead 3 workshops at your program by May of 2022. So that gives you plenty of time. And yeah, if you need any help, obviously we're here. So, but you guys, I'm sure you guys are more than capable of all that. Yeah. And the Connectory, yeah, you guys, I mean, just make sure you're scheduling all of them in there, and we're here to help keep track of that too. So social media, here's all of the things that you can use to sort of post your content, your pictures. Again, that's really helpful for us to help celebrate National Leap into Science Week, because that's kind of a part of the grant program is celebrating Leap into Science Week. So make use of all of these Twitter handles and the hashtag Leap into Science on Twitter and Facebook. I'm sure most of us are probably using Facebook to promote our after school programs. So make use of that, because that helps us out too. And yeah, share programs and questions and ideas on social media as well. Yeah, National Leap into Science Week. I don't know if I need to go into too much detail on this. We'll have more time in the following trainings to kind of share more about this, but yeah, you can just keep this in mind. It's yeah, part of the program, but it's not something we need to worry about too much now. Are there any questions in these last 5 minutes? I want to make sure there's time for that.
And I will jump in real quick. So for that Leap into Science Week, really what we as a network are going to do, we are doing this celebrating for you. What we are going to ask is, over the course of the next several months, when you're implementing Leap into Science, take a photo if you have photo permission to do so. Give us your kind of story of what's happening, because we're going to be celebrating all of your programs, and we'd like to feature each of your programs throughout that week on our own social media and through our blog posts to really show how you're all expanding literacy and STEM opportunities for students across the state. So please just keep us in the loop. That's really the main thing. You don't need to feel compelled to have it during LEAP. I know Elizabeth was talking about Anchorage School District is the kind of half day off sequence is the week before is when they're thinking of doing it. That's fine. Whenever you want to implement. Leap into Science Week is just our week to kind of celebrate all the great work that you're doing with us. The other part I did want to say, because I did see in the chat box from Jesse in regards to the Balance Workshop. So we are going to be mailing out each of the curriculum kits to you before the training. We had folks kind of registering pretty close up to the end here. Our goal is that we'll be mailing them out at least 2 weeks before the curriculum training. So as you kind of saw, you know, we'll go through each of the curriculum. You could do most all of this on your own as well. These are pretty much everyday supplies that you may already have around. Things like plastic cups, blocks, flashlights, you know, other items like that. We will be mailing you though the full kit. So if you want to wait for us to mail it, great. You know, but they will be coming in the mail probably about 2 weeks before your next curriculum training. And I'm gonna say, Lily, if you jump to the next slide.
Yeah.
So this is one of the key things Lily was mentioning. We did have to change a date. We've had kind of a bunch of changes. So we lost a staff member who is helping being part of the organizing process. So Lily and Elizabeth have kind of jumped in to be able to do everything here for us. So we condensed the two, like we talked about earlier, the school age and the family, because we wanted to give flexibility, especially with COVID, to be able to give implementation flexibility. But we also do need to move the date that you originally signed up, which was November 19th. That is that for WIND, Lily?
Yeah.
That's for the WIND workshop. We are moving it to November 17th. November 19th falls during our Alaska After School Conference. So our staff is going to be occupied. We encourage you all to join us for the conference as well. Registration goes live today for that conference. It's our kind of gathering point of out of school time educators. And we do have scholarships available for that. So you don't even need to pay $25 to go. So that's free if you want. But so just wanted to really land on that point. We are moving the 19th to the 17th. If you cannot attend, we're going to be recording this and still sending out this recording as well for the workshop. So even if you can't, just give Lily a heads up saying, can't make it today to one of the workshops, and we'll make sure to get you the recording. Any questions folks have? Sorry to jump in at the end there, Lily.
No, you're totally good.
This is MJ, and I apologize. I'm a leaner in, and I've not modified my behavior this workshop. But one of the flyers that you showed had like engaging parents with questions. Are we allowed to post that on our website or share that out digitally, or is that, what are the restrictions about that?
I'm going to say yes, as long as you give credit to Leap into Science for doing it. So, you know, if you are using that as part of your LEAP material, especially MJ, I know you're in Juneau Public Library. So if you are leading the training or you're leading a workshop virtually and you say, hey, families, here's the sheet to ask questions or to go home with, like if you did it in person and you say families, we're going to have this posted, that's totally fine. Just give credit to Leap into Science is the key thing in the Franklin Institute, and that will all already be on that flyer sheet. The main reason why they asked, like Lily said and Elizabeth said, they didn't want you recording your actual workshop with kids and sharing that out is because of privacy concerns around children. Other questions? All right. For the last thing we're going to ask, and we'll send it out as well, just please go ahead and complete the workshop evaluation form. I'm going to plop it in the chat box right now. This just again helps National Girls Collaborative, the Franklin Institute, and us, the Alaska After School Network, and the Anchorage Public Library, being able to reflect and see ways that we can strengthen and improve the training. This was our first go through. We will iron out some of the creases in tech for the next one. And just really want to thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, huge thank you to Lily, who's put together 40 activity kits and led the training. Thank you to Elizabeth for agreeing to be our content partner and expert. on literacy joining us, and thank all of you for still engaging kids throughout what has been the most challenging year and a half of my professional career working with young people. So thank you all. Let us know how we can help. If you don't receive your kit in the mail in the next week, contact us. Lily's going to be reaching out as well. We do have tracking numbers for all the kits. I know Juno Kotzebue just got sent out 2 days ago. So those ones are in the mail heading to you now. And there's several others that should be getting in within the next week or so. All right. Thank you all. And again, thank you, Lily, Elizabeth, and all of you educators for joining us today.
Thank you so much, guys, everyone, Thomas, everyone, Elizabeth. Bye.
Bye. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good day.